Hi guys, welcome to the Sunday slot. Okay, so it's 10:30, the Sunday slot, and our guest today is Darren Peattie of the East Neuk Salt Company. So I'm going to bring Darren on. Hi Darren, how are you?
Morning Jim, I'm fine. Very good, thanks.
Fantastic. Wonderful day today, isn't it?
Not here. Not here, Jim. It's a bit overcast.
I'm all right. It's all right here. It's nice and it's funny how when you go round Fife, you've got all the different microclimates. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be in the Levenmouth area and it'll be a completely different microclimate from East Neuk, and then you go over to St Andrews and it's a completely different climate there as well.
Well, I think we're experiencing that today, Jim, because it's not that great here. Do you know when I used to live in the Highlands up the top in a place called Skerra, and I'd phone my dad just to say how he was, and he would always say to me, "Aye, it's beautiful sunshine down here," because we used to get terrible weather up there. I'd put the phone down from speaking to him, and I'd phone my brother. I'd say, "What's the weather like?" He'd say, "Pouring with rain." My dad used to always tell me it was beautiful weather. You know, that kind of envy thing. You're stuck in the Highlands in the pouring rain. Aye, but no, hopefully the day will get better.
So, you know why I've invited you on the show? I mean, I'll tell the viewers a bit more about this as well. I'm completely intrigued about your journey, because when I've read about it, it was like, well, wait a minute. A guy that says, I don't want anything to do with this place. I'm off and I want to be in the city. And then all of a sudden, years later, he comes back and goes, wait a minute, this was all a big mistake. I should have stayed here.
Yeah.
But so tell me about that whole thing. I mean, you were obviously born at an early age, like all of us. And what happened out of there then?
Do you know what, Jim? It's a real difficult one because, like you say, I kind of left here. You know, the kind of party line is I left here with smoke on my heels. Small fishing village. What can this offer me? You know, I was a bit I wanted more, let's say. And I think when you get to 17, 18 and you're brought up in a fishing village, you're looking for the bright lights. The city, you know, you want to go out and forge a life. And, you know, I ended up in London, which was incredible. You know, very fortunate. I worked in finance. I was living in Chelsea. I was working in Mayfair. It was just great. It was a whole new different scene for me. But even from then, I had that kind of feeling of something's missing. And I kind of had that all the way through my life. You know, London, Dundee, Edinburgh, up in the Highlands. I always had that feeling.
You don't just think everybody's like that, though. Do you not think everybody's like that? I've got a funny feeling everybody's like that, because that's kind of how my story was.
I know, but there's some people. Well, actually, Jim, you know, you'll know this. There's a lot of people around here that have never left the villages. You know, my dad, for example, was born in the village. He's never left the village. He's 73 now. There's a lot of the younger generation, and they seem really, really content and glad to be here. But I just, you know, I think when you have kids, it brings a real, you know, you look at life differently, you think about things differently, and especially when you come from a real nice East Neuk fishing village, that kind of feeling kicks in when you kind of start realising you want your kids to have what you had, you know, that great coastal life growing up. So I think that's when it clicked that, you know, home is where the heart beats best.
Is that the epiphany moment when your mum and dad used to tell you, aye, but it's not like that?
I hate to say it, but
I'm sounding like my mother and father.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that a lot in myself now. But yeah, I mean, I guess they were right, you know, when they used to say to you, you don't know what you've got. And it's like, well, there's got to be more to it than this.
It's like it's just sand and sea.
Yeah, aye. But you know, Jim, that it's quite surreal that I should come back and set up a salt company that's, you know, really ties me to the sea, because I spent half my life in the water down there, you know, on purpose and not on purpose. You know, I'd go home most days soaked from head to toe. I'd either fallen off the pier, or, you know, me and my mate David Scott had built a raft and it had sunk, or, you know, in the summertime, you spend your life in the water, and the kids are still doing it. It's great.
Yeah.
Although they're wearing wetsuits nowadays, we never wore wetsuits.
Aye. Morning, Andrea. Thanks for watching the show. Morning, Lorraine. Nice to see you watching the show. Andrea, I opened my mouth and my mother came out. Andrea actually identifies with that completely. I mean, come on. I mean, the city's bound to have been absolutely fantastic. I mean, there bound to have been some really good times, and to think that you would want to leave that, you know, I mean, was it as good as you thought it was?
Oh, I think in the early stages, Jim, it was better than I thought it was. You know, it was, and like you say, there was some really good times. But
what sort of things did you get up to then? Come on, tell me, spill the beans.
If this is a family show, Jim, don't ask questions like that. No, do you know, it was from a small coasting village to kind of the finance. Everything was totally new to me. I'd never kind of really met these kind of, you know, high-end people. You know, everything was a learning curve. The places we went to eat on Friday nights, you know, I was used to a chippy, and now we're sitting in some fine restaurants. You know, it was incredible. But I realised really quick on the finance was extremely boring, really, really boring. But I stuck it out and then started moving into kind of different industries.
Yeah, what area of finance did you work in then?
I worked in corporate finance, so we did a lot of company formations and stocks and shares and due diligence.
Right, okay.
But it was, I mean, it's set me up very well for understanding business process now.
Yeah.
But I still equally find that boring. You know, I'm wanting to get out into the sea and get hands-on and, you know, really carve a great salt, you know, for the East Neuk and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I worked at Standard Life for a while, and it was actuarial I was involved in, and everybody used to fall. Every time I mentioned actuarial, everybody kind of did this falling asleep thing. I loved it. I mean, I am a finance guy. You know, I love the numbers. I love making it happen. That's what intrigues me about it, and that's what I love about running a business.
Yeah.
You know, so you're absolutely right. That paved the way for where you are now.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that, do you think you wouldn't have been doing what you were doing now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if I hadn't worked in London, I would never have got to see these different peoples and different businesses. And, you know, when I was working with businesses, like I used to manage the Chrysler account, the car company. And you'd meet people, and I would think to myself, do you know what? See, rather than filling in all your paperwork, I'd rather be you. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit where, you know, I want to break away from the norm and I want to set the business up. I don't want to be the background man and doing all the paperwork. You know, I want to be driving that business.
You think it's more like I don't want to build somebody else's dream?
Aye, yes, absolutely.
I would rather do it for myself, and you know, absolutely, that's the way some people are wired up.
Yeah.
But the majority of people like, yeah, I just want an easy life. I'm quite happy just 9 to 5, you know, live for the weekend sort of thing. That's fine. But other people are driven, and that seems to be your sort of focus.
Yeah.
So, why are you driven? Why is that? I
think it's a desire to succeed, and you know, I'm very interested in. I think most people go into business with an attitude of what's in it for me. I'm looking at it from a totally different angle. I'm looking at it from what's in it for us, you know. And I mean, when I talk about us, I mean the East Neuk, the village, the villages, the local businesses, places like the Dory Bistro and Gallery in Pitt and Weem. We collaborated with those guys. They built a bagel, you know, out of East Neuk Salt, sold it through their takeaway service. That puts the East Neuk Salt Company on the map. It puts the Bistro Dory and Gallery from in Pitt and Weem on the map. People like the Cellar, the Cocoa Tree in Pitt and Weem. I'm all about how can my brand, that's kind of, you know, in fashion at the moment with the press and that, how can we use that to better everyone else in the area? And then long term, how can we collaborate with businesses across East Neuk to promote East Neuk? Rather than what's in it for me, we're looking at it from a what's in it for us as a collective.
So
I think that makes people succeed.
Where did this programming come from then? And I'll talk about programming because I'll tell you my experience. My mother was so driven for me that I end up becoming a perfectionist, because I used to come home and my brother used to come home, and we used to say we had 99% in an exam, and my mother would say, what happened to the other 1%? And that's what drove me to be almost a perfectionist, which was almost my undoing. But now I've learned to cope with that. So where's the process up here that drove you? What is it? It's not just, you didn't just wake up one morning and say to yourself, I just want to be successful. There's bound to be something in your mind in the past that drove you to want to do this.
Gosh, Jim, this is getting heavy.
Aye.
I feel like I should be lying on the couch, you know. Well, do you know what? I think hard work's automatically put into you around here. You know, you got to work.
I mean, it's the fishing process that does that to you, isn't it?
Yeah. Aye, and you grow up and you watch everybody. You know, it's a wee bit different now, but you watch everybody working. You watch men like your father going to sea. You know, a great guy in the village, John McBain, who sadly passed last year. But you watch these men go to the shipyards and the slipway, and it's just a natural process. You work, you go to work, and you provide. And you know, I have a wife and 2 kids. My wife's the head chef in the Dory Bistro in Peattie. But it's a collective. We've both got to work to achieve this. My mother is a real, massive inspiration for me, because although she was a kind of stay-at-home mother when we were young, she then became a chambermaid in a hotel when we were a bit older. And within 2-3 years, she was running that hotel. She was the general manager, massive hotel in St Andrews. And I just look at her and I think, thank you, because I think she's put that drive in me that don't just settle, you know, start somewhere, but always look up. And I think that's probably it.
Do you think it's almost like the people round about you mould and shape your future, because you see what they do, it shouts more loudly than what they say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was young, you know, we were kids. We used to, you know, set fire to anything that wasn't nailed down. Or
I shouldn't laugh at that.
You know, but we'd have colossal fires at the beach. We'd set off fireworks, all that kind of stuff. But there was a few characters in the village that when you were misbehaving, being a kid, you would see them and you'd go, oh, "That's him! Go shift!" And that gives you that kind of sense. You know, although we were mischievous little buggers. We did always have that kind of respect for our elders. And I think that's quite different nowadays, because St Monans is really lacking industry, you know, which I'm hoping the salt will change. The boat building's gone, the fishing doesn't operate out the harbour apart from a few boats. We're in a bit of a precarious position here, and I'm hoping that, you know, the salt company will bring that kind of industry back. It's really important. Really important.
Yeah. Morning, Lisa. Thanks for watching. Morning, Anne-Marie. Lorraine says it all. Scotland the brand, but more or less East Neuk the brand, when you think about it. I mean, East Neuk's a brand in its own right, I would say.
Yeah, Lorraine's a big follower of ours on Facebook. Hello, Lorraine.
If anybody's got any questions for Darren, please feel free to answer them. More than happy to answer them. So we'll just continue then, Darren. So you've been in the city. You've done that. So that decision was made to come back. So when you came back, I mean, did you just come back and say, right, I'm coming back, and then I'll work out what I'm going to do from there?
No. I mean, Jim, I had quite a long journey. I'm just back. You know, it's from London. I then moved around. You know, I lived in Edinburgh, lived in Dundee. Then I met my wife. I was working in the Apex Hotel in Dundee. I was meant to be going to study in Middlesbrough, and I met my wife at the hotel, and well, here we are now. We then moved to rural Perthshire, and my wife was, she got pregnant, and Vary grew up on the Isle of Canna on the west coast. They've always kind of lived remotely, although their kind of family home was in Perthshire. Our mum and dad live up in Skerra on the northwest coast, and we'd kind of fallen in love with this wee place, the kind of crofter lifestyle. And we moved up there 5-6 years, but that thing was happening, Jim, where I was like, something's not right about this, and we gradually just moved back down the country, and we got back home, and it's great.
So when you got back home, was it everybody was welcome with open arms? Did you experience that? Was it the prodigal son has returned?
Well, now that I'm in the village, because I was living outside the village for about a year and a bit, just based on, well, you're the perfect guy to speak this about. Getting a house around here is not easy. And we know why that is, but it's not easy. But I managed to last month get back in the village. The response has been great. It's like cards through the door, welcome home, welcome to the street. It just shows the kind of community we live in.
Yeah, I mean, your family's been in the East Neuk for quite a number of generations.
I think we're tying it back to over 200 years. I mean, there's a monument, the Matthew Peattie's monument, that sits next to the pan loaf and the blocks. I mean, my ancestor paid for that to help the boats that were under sail get in and out of the harbour. So we've been kicking around here for a fair while. But there is families, that have got longer. The families that were involved in the salt, for example, Ina Gibbons, her people were involved in the salt. I've not been able to track any of mine back to that salt. We're like blacksmiths, and I think there was shoemakers at one point I found as well. But Billy Morris, do you know Billy Morris from Ruin? You know Billy? He's like the walking historian of this town. If you speak to him, and it's just like, wow, I never knew that. I mean, he knows everything. He gave me the family tree chart in us buckets. I mean, and Billy's involved with the heritage side of the business. That was his idea about the pan house. But if you want to know anything about St Monans, Billy Morris is your man.
I think for me personally, it's like I've found a complete love for the area. Yeah. It's almost like my eyes light up, and I feel a sense of togetherness when I talk about East Neuk, and when I talk about Fife itself in general. I think it's the most wonderful place in the world, and possibly that's because we talk about that so much that other people around the world go, "I want to live there." Then,
aye, it's we're really lucky in this area, but we need things like the East Neuk Salt Company. We need more enterprise, and Billy and myself, we've always taken the tagline that preserve your past to sustain your future. And the windmill, the salt pans, that's what astounded me, Jim. I was down there and I thought, I've been away for 17 years. Why has nobody done anything with this? And when I was speaking to people, it was St Monans, in my eyes then, was like a walk-through village on the coastal path. You're in Pittenweem, beautiful harbour, lovely restaurants, all that kind of stuff. You come along the coast, you had a windmill that you can't access, salt pans, you move through, you're through the village, at the kirk, and then you're on to Ely. And I thought, we need to bring enterprise to this area. We need to get people spending their money in the village, because we've got really great places like the Dive and Garnet, 2 great shops, the East Pier. I thought we need to bring them in and keep them in, rather than just going through. And we need to, sorry to sound commercial, but we need their money. We need these businesses, their money. So the salt, if I can show the old salt with the salt pan rebuild with Billy, and then people come up to the new salt in the village, we've told the whole story. And then we move them through the village and they go on.
The classic example is The salt pans is almost talked about on every single travel show at some point in time.
Yep.
Time and time again about its unique history, and yet it's just sat there for all these years. And you're absolutely right; nobody's done anything about it. I'll bring a couple of questions, and we'll maybe answer them later on. But just so that people know we're asking, we're aware of them. Adam, thanks for watching. He says, wish you the best of luck in your venture. Salt is on an occasional purchase, so how can you get enough sales to make the business model work? We'll talk about that in a wee minute. Andrea says the windmill is iconic in East Neuk and is now its sales to identify the windmiller from Cammelwick Green. I used to watch that all the time. I love that show. And then Lorraine says, I was fascinated to learn more about the Battle of St Monans, 16th century, which is historian Billy and Leonard Lowe talks about as well. Yeah, Leonard's a brilliant character. So we'll talk about the Salt Panzer. So where on earth did that idea come from? I mean, how did that come about? Nobody just says, I'm looking for an idea. I tell you what, I'll make salt.
They do. They do, Jim. I was down the pans. I walked my dog down there. I was down the pans, and I thought, why has nobody done anything with this? And then I went home and I silently said to myself, salt industry, let's have a wee look about the salt industry. And I thought this could actually be really, viable business. And I'll tell Adam shortly why it will be a viable business. So then I sat there, and just by chance, Jim, like you're saying about travel programs, I'm lying on the sofa watching the television the next day. Boom, up comes the St Monans salt pans. And I thought, this is a sign. I must make this salt happen. So I said to my wife, we're going to start up a salt company. I honestly thought she was going to start packing her bags and do a runner. She said to me, are you feeling all right? I said, Barry, sit down.
Let's have moments as well.
Honestly, I was like, oh boy, this is not going the way I thought it would go. Then when I started explaining to her, blah, 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 she really, and she's a massive foodie. And she totally got it. I said, this is great for the village. It's great for the East Neuk. It's a lovely business for a family, with the heritage, all that kind of stuff. And she totally got into it. And then we just started building the brand, building the story. But the story's always been off the back of the East Neuk. We've got two great film guys that work with us, Bill Bruce and Seller Dyke. That voice, stuff is just phenomenal. And then we've got John Bullock, Slate Productions, who's over in Glasgow. John started this story with us, but obviously COVID, we don't want people travelling across regions. And I was always about promoting, iconic features like the castle and the harbours and the boathouse and all that kind of stuff. And the story allowed us to get quite a lot of traction, and people started talking about it. So I guess essentially, Jim, if you walk down the salt pans and you come up with crazy ideas thinking you're going to start a salt company, it can actually come to reality.
Well, I mean, there it is there when you think about it. I mean, there's the wound that everybody talks about, isn't it?
Yeah. So there was two archaeological digs, one in the 80s and one in the 90s. And what you've got there is you've got 9 salt pan houses, and they covered 8 of them up. And they left the foundations and a bit the remains of what they found. So I was away to touch the screen there as if you were sitting next to me. But basically, do you have a photograph of the reconstruction model?
I do actually, in there.
That's a real fine example. So on the right-hand side would be the coal chute where the boy in the blue is standing.
Yep.
And then you've got your furnace and then your iron salt pan with a chimney.
So the furnace sits below that and then heats that up, doesn't it?
Yeah, 8 tons of coal for 1 ton of salt. And I did have a few people say to me, you're going to reek the village out. So I had to go back to square one and say, no, we're not burning coal. This is the visitors offering. We're actually using a lot of engineering to produce the salt in an environmentally friendly way.
It's these great Scottish words when you think about it. You're going to reek. I mean, people outside the area won't understand what reek is. It means you're going to smoke everything out.
Aye. And questions like, when are you going to light that fire? I'll need to take my washing in. It's like, well, we're not lighting fires.
Yeah. So
But
that's the construction model. That's the archaeological digs, obviously.
That's right. Yep.
There's what it was originally. Can you see me a wee pointer on the screen?
Yeah, I can see a pointer on the screen.
So that's where the salt and the water is, and then the furnace is underneath, isn't it?
That's right below.
And then what's this? Is this some guy stacking?
That guy, I actually think, is feeding the furnace from there.
Yep.
And then obviously the big black bit right at the front, that's the coal shuttle that the women and kids used to feed. Now, there's a good story about the coal here that I think a lot of people don't know, but Sir John Anstruther, who set up the Neuk Salt and Coal Company with his business partner, Robert Fall, these guys were brilliant at what they did. The petitioned Pittenweem Council so their boats could get traffic rights over others, like absolutely brilliant. Very, very short-lived industry though, but Pittenweem coal was of such high quality compared to other collieries across Fife, and the pans used to just run off the scrap coal. So up in the windmill in Peattie's field here, you can still see some of the marks from the wagonway and that from an aerial shot. It's incredible. I'll send you the pictures.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So we've got salt and we've got that. So the next process is, how am I going to raise this money?
Yes, aye. Well, that's been a really fantastic journey. We were very fortunate that a sea salt company in Ireland, Achill Island Sea Salt, gave us, this is how you do it. This is what you need. We've got their engineer working with us, John O'Riordan.
Why would we do that?
Well, do you know, Jim, it's a real thing. It's called paying it back, because when Achill Island went to other salt companies to ask for information, they got the same response we got, door slammed in our face. So Achill, when one company did open up to Achill and tell them what they needed, Marjorie and Cairn decided that to pay it back, they would then tell us what to do. And that's, we're totally open about how we're doing things anyway, but we'll be paying it back in some form or other as well.
How many times did you have your door slammed in your face? I mean, how many no's did you get? Because it doesn't happen overnight, and success isn't it's a journey. So, what sort of things did you go through?
Well, I'm like a dog with a bone, Jim. If I'm needing information, I'm going till I get it. Nobody opened up to us, but now people are coming forward that we'd previously asked in the past. Because what I'm trying to do, for example, in Scotland, is let's not look at each other as competition. Let's look at the opportunity. If we all work together, how can we develop something that benefits us all? And I'm currently speaking with Visit Scotland about something really, really cool. Competition's healthy, of course, but in these times, support is equally healthy.
Sometimes it's a straightforward process that your competitors are your best allies to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Because of that camaraderie that you all have. And I always have in the stages of business, everybody used to say, well, there's enough room for everybody. Yeah. And I used to say in the mortal words of Highlander, there can be only one.
I'd be a bit boring if there was only one. You've got to strive. But going back to the money, Jim, we've been really quite fortunate here. Fourth Flag, the European Maritime Fisheries Fund, because what I did initially was I went to SEPA and Marine Scotland and said, am I allowed to take seawater, all that kind of stuff. We then met this most fantastic woman, Ros MacArthur, who managed the European Maritime Fisheries Fourth Flag Fund. And when we told her about the salt, she was really, really enthralled by it. And so we got money from them. We then had to crowdfund. Once again, I took it back to this is not about me or us as a family. It's about businesses in the East Neuk. We tied in with the dory, the cellar. William Curley came on board, Tony Singh, the East Neuk Kiln House, Penman's Butchers, and it was the most exciting but really anxious month of my life. My mouse was going like this. Has anyone put money in? Has anyone put money in? It started creeping up. People started buying batches of salt, like yourself. Thank you, Jim. And I was like, wow, we're getting some traction here. You know, I thought, because it was a real bad time to do a crowdfunder. We're in a pandemic. People are furloughed. But people just, it showed me the power of great communication and, you know, bringing something back. And then just as we were nearing the end of the crowdfunder and the money was ramping up, I got a message from a woman, which I'm not going to mention names because she was very private. And she said, I would like to give you a donation. I'd like to sit down and speak to you first. And she was trying to gauge if I had passion for the business. So I met her at Balgove, and
when you before that conversation, you were thinking, well, you're probably £1,000 or something like that.
That's exactly what I thought. Oh, I might get a grand out of this. And we're sitting at Balgove and we're chatting. You know, it turns out we've got quite a lot in common. And she said to me, "Do you want to know how much money I'm going to give you?" And I said, "Oh yes, of course. You know, keep your cool, Darren. Keep your cool." And she said £30,000. And
wow.
And I thought, you know, professionalism kicked in, Jim. And I went,
excuse me? What was that? Sorry?
But I actually think I went, all right, thank you. And later on, you know, this woman had said to my wife that she said to my wife she was a bit shocked by my response. I think she thought I might go, bloody, you know, but it's worked out really well. And that kind of money as well has really helped us go bigger.
Yeah.
It's just a fascinating experience, and you know, everyone who supported us.
It's got a lot to do with the laws of attraction, because when you start out in your journey in the beginning in the crowdfunding, think about this logic. It's like it takes one or two people that other people know to invest in that process, and then it sort of expands out of there. And because it's like, is this just a flash in the pan, or is it not going to be? Is it going? You know, that sort of process. And then eventually, over a period of time, people will go, "Wait a minute, this guy's serious." You know,
yeah. I mean, it's. I don't know. I think the story we built plays a part in, you know, people buying into the journey, and that was always our join us on the journey. You know, I want. You know, on paperwork, I own the East Neuk Salt Company, but that's not what, you know, we want everyone in the East Neuk and beyond, and everyone that's supported us on the crowdfunder to feel a sense of ownership. You know, it's there.
I think exactly the same process for Fife properties.
Yeah.
So on paperwork, I maybe own 5 properties, but really, it's a vehicle for the community.
Yeah, well, exactly the same. Exactly the same. It's I was totally astounded. You know, I said to my wife, this is incredible, because it's a gamble doing a crowdfunder. You know, I know a company that did a crowdfunder and they were asking for 50 grand and they raised £300. So we've been in a real fortunate position here. You know, and for businesses to come together with us, and, you know, Tony Singh and William Curley, and we had people for the Still Game donate money and 2 doors down, and, you know, we got a lot of attention. And, you know, we couldn't do this without every single person on that crowdfunder. You know, we would not be sitting here now.
Yeah, I mean, there's Tony there. I mean,
yeah. So Caroline at Scotia Cabins bought the table of 12. So Tony's cooking them dinner in his house, and they get wine and all that kind of stuff. I think his nights are a bit wild.
It is though, as the momentum builds and as you get more and more traction, more publicity, that other people come on board as a result of that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's we had a call the other day from a really famous hotel, you know, that want the salt. we've pitched ourselves in the real high end kind of bracket. Although our salt's accessible to everybody, but we want the right people, the right companies using it. Because when we were in Ireland, I spoke to them about, brand positioning, and my feeling was that we decide who gets our salt rather than.
It's not a volume market, is it? It's a niche market, and it'll be high margin. It's a real good quality product. It's effectively the Marks and Spencers and Waitrose of salt.
Yes, maybe the Harrods, Jim.
I was waiting. That's the word I was just about to use. Harrods was coming next.
We'll go with Harrods. I think that's far more sophisticated.
So let's look at the on-site. So you've decided to blank yourself at Station Road. So your site's here. That's your depot. And why there? What brought you to Station Road? Why?
Well, the premises for the salt company was a massive journey, huge number of hurdles. We were out the East Neuk, we were in the East Neuk, we were maybe looking at this, maybe looking at that fell through, this fell through. We need height. Height's our big problem. And in the coastal villages, very few buildings have height. But
you've got plenty of height there.
We've got plenty of height there, yeah.
Now, that looks a journey and a half, doesn't it?
Well, do you know what? It's several months previous to this. I had a conversation with a local guy, Alan, and I was asking him about some rental premises, but he had nothing at the time. And then, I was getting my stress on, thinking, are we going to find a premises? We had a premises in Leven. People were saying, how can you make East Neuk Salt in Leven? I was going, well, it's based on the waters, not the physical premises. And then Alan phoned me up one day saying, look, I've bought something. And I said, oh, aye. And he wouldn't tell me what it was. But it turns out it was the old Bashrock oil yard in St Monans. And Alan's really kind of saved my bacon, premises-wise. So we're going to be based in the heart of the village.
I mean, you couldn't have wanted for anything better, could you?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's absolutely ideal. And I think what Alan's doing for the community as well, in the yard is phenomenal. So, like you say, there's a bit of a journey going on there. We've got a new roof going on, and the windows and all that kind of stuff. The kit's lying in the yard. We're at that really exciting moment where we're waiting on our engineer coming across from Ireland. The kit will be built over a period of 4 to 5 weeks, and then we're off. We're off to selling salt. The dream has become a reality.
You're going to need a bigger barrel.
I'm definitely going to need a bigger barrel.
You're not going to get much water from the sea doing that.
No, that was back in the naive days when I thought I'll just wear my trainers to go and get some water for sampling. Typically, always end up in the sea. But we've got a bigger barrel, a much bigger tank, a much bigger hose than that. So things have upscaled dramatically. It's great.
So how did you go about getting permission for that then?
Basically, my protocol was SEPA. I went straight to SEPA and said, listen, if I want to take water, am I allowed? Because I'd been told, the Crown Estate own the seabed and all this kind of stuff. So I phoned up SEPA and they said, listen, you can take 2,500 cubic metres of water per day. 10,000 cubic litres of water per day. Anything above that, you'll need a licence. I don't know any salt company in the land that would need that volume of water. So we are well below what we can take. We then got water tested, all that kind of stuff. We're sitting on, we call the salt the white gold, but where we're taking our water from in Ely with the volcanic rock, well, it's grade A water. You know what I mean? It's tested.
When you look at Ely, it's like, wow, it's crystal clear waters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is almost. You're absolutely right. It's pure.
Yeah. So we're very, very fortunate in respect to the water as well. So that was really it, Jim.
So I'm going to take it. You obviously water's been tested.
Yeah.
There's everybody going about pollutants in water and plastic in water and everything like that. So what about all that process?
Yeah, the process was quite a lengthy one to get actual physical data, but everything's fine. And when we put our website up, which is getting worked on, every month when we're testing water and so on, we will be putting all the data up on the website, just to clarify that the waters are as good as we are saying they are. Where, the rock structure and all that kind of stuff, it's a natural filter as well. And then when we looked at microplastics and all that kind of stuff, we'll be using a filter finer than a human hair, before we put that water into the vacuum evaporator. So, absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Emma says, yeah, definitely the Harrods. So excited to follow this journey. Well done. Lorraine's obviously saying, several claps and that. Thanks very much, guys. If anybody's got any questions, please feel free to ask. More than happy to answer them. So this is the next steps in your journey. You've got the site, you've got the plant in place. Clearly, lockdown's obviously going to cause you a problem. Or a challenge.
I would say a challenge. John, our engineer, is obviously in Ireland. He was meant to be coming over, in the next week. We need to wait for the roof to go on. But the minute John's here, things will go very, very smoothly. Now, John's taking the ferry across from Ireland because he needs all these kit and tools and all that for the engineering process. My current, whether the government changes their mind again, but I believe John takes a test. If he's negative, he comes across, he works, stays in accommodation in the village, and then takes a test and goes back to Ireland. I'm hoping it's going to be that simple. Mm-hmm. But the lockdown, John and his partner, Joan, came across last year just so we could talk salt. We took them to the Anstruther Fish and Chip Bar for a chippy. It was really, really nice. John's a super guy, and he's really, really smart. And that's maybe where some of the difficulties lie, because he speaks to me like I'm an engineer. And I'm having to say to people, I'm not an engineer.
I used to get that in industry when I worked in manufacturing.
Yeah, it's like I was at a plumbing company recently, and the guy was talking to me, and I left. I was like, did not get any of that. But I just, yeah. And then I phoned John and say, right, this is what's been said. And then John simplifies it. He's very good at treating me, now as not an engineer, we'll say.
Yeah, there's Lewis asked a wee question there. Lewis, thanks very much for your question. Are there any byproducts from the seawater when making the salt?
There sure are, Lewis. This is quite a good one, Jim. I know, Lewis. The byproducts of the salt are, well, we get left with 900 litres of distilled water per day. And
there's a brand in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And this goes back to Adam's question as well about, we as a business are going to create multi-products from our byproducts. The distilled water will be getting turned into a gin, which we're going to call Panhouse Number 9. And I think the reason Lewis asked that question was because Lewis has come up with a tagline for the gin, and he would like the tagline to be, "This'll knock your pan in," because it's going to be 57% proof.
That's brilliant.
And then we're looking at ice as well from the distilled water, so we can sell ice. We're also creating a crisp range. We work with the most fantastic company already, a girl called Les, Willow and Plum Soap. I don't know if you've heard of these guys. She is phenomenal. So she makes our sea spray and sandalwood soap, our lime basil and mandarin soap as well. Like, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, there's a lot of products that we're working on. We also got Scottish government funding to create a innovative product. So we created this atomizer spray that, when it hits the market, will be the only one in the world. So we're starting in a strong position. We've done the legwork.
Yeah. So all these byproducts and everything else. I mean, how are you going to keep your focus? Because it's easy, I've been there before, where it's like I could do that, I could do this, and I call it the shiny penny. So it's like you're walking along the road and you know where you're going, and all of a sudden you look down to the side and you go, "Oh, what's that?" And then the next minute you've got distracted, and it's like, so how are you going to keep on that? How are you going to keep that focus and that vision?
I've surrounded myself with really, really good people. That support. I mean, the CRISP, for example, the CRISP project. I'm not even running that CRISP project. We've got somebody running that for us. My character, Jim, is, like I said earlier on, I know what my end goal is, and I just go straight for that goal. And as I go along and ideas come in, I'd like to be putting them on to other people. Obviously, I want to be central to the business, but my end goal, and that's in everything I've done, until I've got there, I just don't stop going forward.
Yeah. And
would you say that's a bit of a control freak nature?
Not really. No, that's exactly how you should be doing it. I mean, that's what Richard Branson does when you think about the logic of that. I mean, he's never been claimed to be the most intelligent person in the world, and he says all the time that all he does is surround himself with people more intelligent than him that are capable of doing that job, and then he allocates it to them. As an accountant, my first reservation, I jump in straight away and think, oh, well, wait a minute, what about costs? Would they get out of control? That's how I think sometimes.
Yeah. No, I think we've crunched the figures. We know everything to the exact how much gas is going to cost a month and all that kind of stuff. But these products, we're positioning ourselves at the high end, so they come with a high end price tag, and also the job creation that we want. We want to get up to 20 people. Now, that'll take time. We'll start off lean to begin with. We've already built our team for when we start. But keeping it lean, keeping the cash in the business, then allows us to bring on more people. The more products, the more revenue, the more employment. This is not a Darren wants to get rich out of a salt company. This is Darren wants to build something for his community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very few people out there that actually work out their way to do that. But I think that's the way forward for most community organisations. The very fact is, without people, well, Joe Strummer from the Clash actually said it. Without people, you're nothing.
Yeah,
that's it. Ultimately, you need other people to help you on your journey.
Yeah, I used to be a big fan of who was it? Anita Roddick, that started the Body Shop. And I loved her whole mentality about the business of business is not about money, it's about people. And I really bought into that. And then she sold her business to L'Oreal, which is the opposite end of the scale of what she does, or did, because she's obviously dead now. And I thought, oof. But I do think our original sentiment is right. It's not about the money, it's about the people.
It is about the people to a degree. I typically go in to see someone and say, my objective is to get you to the right decision about what you want in your life. The money is a byproduct of what I do well. That's it, ultimately. And if I do my job well, the money will flow. It's no the other way around, And I think you've got the kind of the same philosophy.
Yeah, totally, Jim. Totally.
So Elena comes on and says about popcorn. What about popcorn? What about popcorn?
We're doing popcorn as well. I mean, I love crisps. I like the real fried. These are nice crisps, but I also want to offer a healthy alternative. And popcorn, the kind of 0 calorie. It's on trend at the moment. And why not add some beautiful East Neuk Salt to it, and also caramel as well. So yeah, we're doing popcorn as well.
Yeah. So and there's a huge amount of publicity now. I think you've got a radio show tomorrow night, BBC Scotland. It's coming out.
We're on BBC Radio Scotland tomorrow morning. The time's been changed till 11:20.
Okay.
So we're on the Kay Adams show. And then tomorrow I've got a conversation with a production company who want to film a documentary as well. So we're really putting the town on the map.
How on earth, though, do you actually physically get the hours to do this? Because literally, you've only got 24 hours in a day.
Aye. Well, I mean, a couple of months ago, Jim, I looked a lot younger than this. I just, once again, I'm just going for it. We've got to, the PR's been phenomenal. It's, it keeps you up till 12 o'clock at night doing calls and things like that. We don't have a PR company as such. I'm kind of driving the PR myself.
I was going to say that. I mean, because literally, where is all this PR coming from? Because you'd normally have a PR person that you would employ to do all this for you and push all this out. But it's almost every single. And you said to yourself, "We'll come on and folk will be going, oh God, it's no that boy again with East Neuk Salt Company."
Well, do you know what, Jim? Yesterday we had a phone call with the Daily Mail last week, and the guy says, "Look, we'll do a wee feature on you in the Daily Mail. You'll be in on Saturday." I thought, excellent. I get the Daily Mail yesterday, and I'm flicking through it, and I open up this middle page spread with my head on it, and I went, "Oh no!" But it was a great article. But journalists like Rosalind Erskine and Julia Bryce and Gail Ritchie and all that, they've really supported us and taken us forward. And then the minute we were on the BBC website, it opened. That's the world's biggest news website.
Yeah,
it really opened up, and we're still on it. I think 6 days later. That's not known on the BBC website. They're saying.
How do you keep yourself grounded then? I mean, because literally, look at it this way. When you think about it, the Bee Gees talked about it in the first time they went round. They said it was called first fame. They accelerate to the point where they actually think they're almost like they're demigods, to a degree. And then it's like, wait a minute, well, what's going on here? And it all falls apart. And then they realise later on, it's like, wait a minute, I should never have let it get out of control. How do you keep yourself grounded?
Well, I'm only making salt, Jim. It's. And I think if I turned into one of these egomaniacs that it's all me, once again, the people around me would soon put me in my place. And I think the main thing that's keeping the whole grounding aspect is that it's not about me. It's about everybody else. And that's what I'm striving for. I had people in the street say, "Oh, you're the salt guy." And it's like, no, I'm creating a salt company. I'm bringing our heritage back. It's for everyone.
That's a fantastic philosophy. That's absolutely brilliant. And I've got to say, I mean, I was looking at the product. I'll show everybody so everybody can see. I mean, let's be honest, that is a sexy product.
It sure is, and we've got to thank Kenny McAllister Hall at Offshoot Design for that. Kenny's just, he gets it. It's like he's in your head. What we visualised, Vary and I, when we were looking at a brand, and Kenny brought that forward, we were like, absolutely. Kenny's phenomenal, and it's classy. It's high end. I love it.
So what's your vision then for the future in terms of where do you want, I know we've talked about it and you want it to be the Harrods of sea salt, but where do you want it? Where do you want it in? Do you want it in every high-end restaurant, every Michelin star restaurant? What's your vision for the East Neuk Salt Company?
Well, we've been really fortunate. A lot of Michelin-starred chefs have come forward wanting the salt. I want people using our salt that appreciates the love, the passion, and the story that's went to creating the East Neuk Salt Company. It's been hard work. I think good salt should be accessible to everyone, but I definitely want it to be the real high end. The real high end is, you can go to these supermarket places, the discount places, and you can buy salt for 99 pence. That stuff will kill your insides. This stuff
you'll have a stroke and you'll have Alzheimer's and you'll have every single thing under the sun later on because you're gradually poisoning yourself every single day.
Yeah, I mean, this is hand harvested, 100% sea salt, mineral content, all that kind of stuff. It's the body needs salt, and you should take the best stuff. But I want the business to grow. I want it to bring more opportunity to the villages. and the East Neuk. We've got the tourism element. We're building a tide-to-table education programme for the local primary schools. We've got a lot of plans, Jim, and that's in a very controlled, staged manner. But ultimately, the first thing is get that salt harvested.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of things, comments at the end. Adam said maybe you could partner with the existing Fife gin producer, creating a gin for yourself. So you've done that already, yep.
We've done that, yeah. We've done that.
Perfect. Delighted to introduce you folk to any time. So that's what Adam said. Andrea, will your salt taste different than other salt? I think that's obvious. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And Carol said, will it be available to Joe Public or just restaurants?
Oh, absolutely, Joe Public. That we see our retail side of the company being bigger than the restaurants that we put it in. So absolutely, yeah. I mean, on our website when it goes live, you'll see everywhere that we're going to be stocked in. We've got, for example, over 100 shops in London already as well. But we've got really, local businesses, of course, is really important for miles, all that kind of stuff. But we've got a lot of stockists, and we'll be getting more. And you can order online.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Darren, for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are because we've talked about this time and time again for the last 3 or 4 months, actually.
I know.
And it's great to have you on the show today. I'm a big fan. And anything I could do to help would be absolutely brilliant. Thanks everybody else for watching today. You can watch this later on. Please take time to share it with your friends. Send it out on their feed as well, so everybody gets more and more bought into the East Neuk Salt Company and Darren's vision for where he wants to go with this in terms of the East Neuk of Fife. We need to put the place on the map if it's not already on the map, and I think this is a fantastic venture. I genuinely think this was just waiting to happen. It just needed the right catalyst, which was yourself and the person to do that. So thanks very much for coming on the show, Darren. Next week we're going to be talking to John O'Brien. John, unfortunately, sadly lost his son to solvent abuse. So we're going to be talking to John O'Brien next week about that process and help and support mechanisms. And once again, Darren, thanks very much for coming on the Sunday slot.
No problem. Thank you, Jim.
Bye.